Hello everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and welcome to a super impromptu episode of Comic Class. Yes, this is the show every single week on this channel where we just geek out about comic books, and I have been working for a couple days on this week's episode of Comic Class. It was going to be a special thing that had to do with the Joker and Suicide Squad. But today, Marvel announced something so big that I've been waiting for so long, I just had to talk about. So prepare for 2 episodes of Comic Class this week, everyone, because today, Marvel announced we are finally getting a Runaways TV series. This is huge. Some of you might not know what the Runaways are, so let me go ahead and fill you in on the backstory of this. The Runaways was a comic book series created in the early 2000s by Brian K. Vaughan, the same guy who went on to create Y: The Last Man and Saga, 2 series that people have called some of the best comic book series of all time, and Runaways lived up to that hype. It was an amazing series from Marvel, and it was unlike anything that they had ever done. It was a story about these 6 teenagers who they meet once a year when their parents get together to have their big business deals, and they don't know what their parents do. They only get to meet each other about once a year, so they have very little connection with each other. But one day, at one of these meetings, they finally go, you know what? Why don't we finally find out what our parents talk about? So they sneak around and spy on their parents, and they discover their parents are a supervillain team called the Pride. In fact, they're one of the biggest supervillain teams of all time. The whole reason why in the Marvel Universe almost all the superheroes are on the East Coast is because they run the entire West Coast and they keep all the other heroes away. Everyone is afraid of the Pride. That's how big they are. So, these kids have to run away from home, and they're the only ones who know the secret about their parents, so they have to try and stop them. And as they start to fight against their parents, they discover that each of them have their own unique abilities. And they're not just any old superpowers that they end up developing. Every single member of the Runaways is meant to represent a different part of the Marvel Universe. For example, Caroline is an alien, Nico is a magic user, Gertrude is a time traveler, Chase is an inventor, Molly is a mutant, which I will cover that more later, and their leader, Alex, he's just a normal human, but he's the strategist. He's the big brains of the team. And like I said, this was a series unlike anything else that Marvel was putting out at the time. In fact, it ended up influencing pretty much the next decade of Marvel books. This was a series that focused on characters that you didn't normally see starring in comic book series. It told stories that you didn't normally hear in comic book stories. It was also a book that really spoke for an entire generation that didn't really feel represented in comic books at the time. And when you look at all the changes that have happened to Marvel over the past decade with all the new characters that they've introduced, all the new voices that are being represented in their comics, yeah, you can kind of trace it all back to Runaways. This book was also very unique because for the first volume of it, it didn't really connect to the rest of the Marvel Universe. After that first volume, yeah, they started to delve into the rest of the Marvel Universe, but in their first story arc, they didn't really connect at all. In fact, it almost felt like the Marvel Universe was something completely separate from them. I mean, as I said, they were on the West Coast where none of the other superheroes ever came. The only other characters that they ever interacted with during that first story arc was Cloak and Dagger, which is a duo that has also gained its own series on what used to be ABC Family? I don't know what to call it now. Just put the name right there. Yeah, that channel. They're getting a show on that channel, and I love the fact that Cloak and Dagger and the Runaways crossed over all the time, and now both of them are getting their own series. It's not a stretch to say that these 2 television series are going to end up crossing over. And this is big news not just because this is a beloved series. This is big news because this is a series that's been in production for almost a decade. When Iron Man came out in 2008 and Marvel said, here are all the other movies that we are going to work on, Runaways was one of those movies. They said right there at the very beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we are going to make a Runaways series. But then all of a sudden they said, well, shouldn't we also make the Avengers first? And like, yeah, I guess so. Well, that's gonna push it back. Well, now we have to work on these other Avengers movies. Okay, we gotta push that back some more. Well, maybe it would be better for television. So maybe we're gonna look at this channel. Maybe it'll be on ABC. I don't know about that. It kept getting pushed back and back and back. And it became one of those things that's like, yeah, this is never happening, is it? You're just going to keep dangling this carrot in front of my face. We're never getting that series. We're finally getting that series. This is confirmed. So this is great news, and I really hope that this show can speak to that audience the same way that that comic spoke to that audience, and I'm really looking forward to this series. However, I have a couple of questions. And my first question is, Hulu? I mean, don't get me wrong, Hulu puts out there some pretty good stuff. I mean, they put out some pretty decent shows. But here's the thing. You've got the movies, which are all over there by themselves. That's great. Then you got the Netflix shows. Then you got ABC. Now you're going to be putting stuff on whatever that channel was that used to be ABC Family. That one right there. Bam. Now you're going to have stuff on Hulu. I understand that you can't just make ABC the Marvel TV series. You can't just make that the Marvel channel. But one of my problems with what DC is doing with its television universe is it's dividing it up too much. And I think that DC has learned that lesson because Supergirl is now coming over to the CW, which I think is a great idea. I have a concern that you might be spreading yourself out there in too many places, because when you put all your stuff in one place, it makes it easy to find. But every single time that you divide up, it becomes a little bit harder to find. I mean, I don't even know what channel that formerly ABC Family channel is. And don't get me wrong, Cloak and Dagger should totally be on that channel, but you know, Runaways could also be on that channel. When you eventually make that Miss Marvel TV series, and don't tell me you're not making that Miss Marvel TV series, I know that as soon as Captain Marvel comes out, that's the next TV series that's coming out. I know it's happening. It can also go on that channel. So I think that if you put on that ABC Family channel, it would help to establish the boundaries of your universe a little bit better, because then the movies are the really big giant superheroes who blow stuff up. The Netflix series are the street level heroes who tell the grittier, more adult stories. Then the ABC channel is the superhero-y stuff that's not quite as big as the superhero stuff, you know, stuff like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then the ABC Family channel, that's the stuff for the kids, that's the stuff for teenagers, that's the stuff for the whole family, that's the stuff that speaks to the younger generation. I think that if you kept them in those certain little areas, then we could divide up and go, okay, that's what's there, that's what's there, that's what's there. But now that you're branching out into Hulu, it's like, okay, so now there's a whole other sector in here. However, I will say this. I do think that Hulu is a better place to put a show that is aimed at a younger generation than, say, ABC Family, because ABC Family is on TV, and younger generations, they don't really watch TV anymore. Hell, I don't even really watch TV anymore. I watch pretty much everything online now, so yeah, if you are going to put a show that is aimed at that generation, it would be better to put someplace online. And I'll also say this, Hulu at this point probably has a little bit more money than ABC Family, and one of the members of the Runaways has a pet raptor. Yeah, you can't really do that on a cheap show. So if Hulu was offering more money and saying that they would give it a bigger budget, I can't really blame Marvel for going over to Hulu. My next question is, how closely is this going to be tied to the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Because as I said, in that first storyline for the Runaways, it wasn't connected to any of the other heroes at all. It was completely its own thing. However, in the second volume, they started to interact a little bit more with those big heroes, and I'm not saying you have to do that in the series, you can still completely have them separate from them. However, in the second volume of the Runaways, they got a new member of their team, and slight spoiler for anybody who doesn't want to be ruined on the Runaways, but that new member was the son of Ultron. Ultron has already appeared in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Is there any chance that we could get that actor, James Spader, to come back and play Ultron one last time? You don't have to have the big CGI robot coming there, because I fully understand that would cost a ton of money, but just have his voice coming out of a big computer that created this kid. Like, I would love to see you guys do something like that, because Ultron is one of my favorite villains from the Marvel Universe, and even though the Ultron that we got in Age of Ultron was a completely different character from how he is in the comics, I still love that interpretation. I think that what James Spader did with that character was great. I love the way that he played Ultron, so I would love to see him return, even if it's just his voice, to be in 1 or 2 episodes of the new Runaway series. And my last question, and this is the one that has me the most concerned, is that Molly, one of the most beloved members of the Runaways, is a mutant. And Disney does not own the right to mutants. Yes, that is still owned by Fox. And if you have been paying attention to Marvel Comics recently, they've been killing off all the mutants, and they've been turning a lot of characters who were mutants into non-mutants. So, what are you gonna do with Molly? Because you can't have a Runaway series without Molly. She is an essential part of that team, so are you going to make her an Inhuman? Because I got news for you. You have made so many mutants in the Marvel Comics universe non-mutants, and you've shoved the Inhumans in our face so much in the comic book universe, that if you bring a Runaway series back because of this show, then great. Everybody will be happy, everybody will love that, because people have been wanting a Runaway series to come back for the longest time. But if you bring it back and then go, oh, by the way, Molly, she's actually an Inhuman now. So get used to that. She's now an Inhuman, not a mutant at all. People are gonna be ticked. Hell, I'll be ticked. So let me just put it to you like this. I fully understand that you can't make Molly a mutant in this Hulu series. However, that doesn't mean you have to make her an Inhuman. You've been shoving the Inhumans in our face too much, man. You have to ease up on that some and realize there's other ways for people to get powers. You can give her a brand new origin that still kind of pays respects to her mutant side and ignores the Inhuman possibility. You can come up with something brand new for her to give us more variety and just stop shoving Inhumans in our face. I mean, hell, you've done that so much, I was really concerned that you were going to make Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. an Inhuman. Thank God you're sticking to magic on that one. But those are just my thoughts on the upcoming Runaway series. Let me know in the comments down below how you feel about all this. And if you want to see that upcoming Comic Class episode about the Joker, which was supposed to go up today but got bumped for this, or you want to see any other geeky videos from me from the world of comic books, video games, or movies, then make sure you click that subscribe button. We do fun geeky videos every single week on this channel, and if you like anything you see here, make sure you share it around the web. It's the best way to help out this channel, and I really appreciate the support from anyone who does that. But for now, I'm just going to say thanks for watching, everyone. Come back next time.